Steiner, Doctor of Medicine. Tonight's story has the title, This Strange Ending.
Guardian of birth, healer of the sick, comforter of the aged. And the qualities of the worthy physician are three: the eye of an eagle, the heart of a lion, the hand of a woman.
Our actual case history tonight concerns the field of internal medicine. The object in point, a death certificate. The case in point, Laurie Marie Allen, 19 years old, young, beautiful, alive, out to make a mark for herself in the world of show business. Strong-willed, she was well prepared to gain the ultimate end, stardom. Everyone and everything was working in her favor until the very last moment. And then fate stepped in. And Laurie Allen's dream of glory turned, retreated, and gradually, then suddenly, vanished into the gray, indefinite world from whence it came. For as dusk settled over a chill late November afternoon in the city of New York in the year of 1947, death came to Laurie Allen, one of the decade's most promising young ballerinas. Everyone knew the cause of her death. It was published fact. There was no question about it. But one man refused, and still refuses, to accept the simple wording on the death certificate. His name is Joseph Bailey, feature writer for a New York City daily paper. From the moment he stood in the funeral parlor and viewed the mortal remains of 19-year-old Laurie Allen, the question kept recurring in his mind. Why was she dead? What was the real answer?
Laurie Allen's dead. I didn't know her. I never met her. I don't know why I should care so much that she's dead, but I do care. They say Laurie Allen died of cancer. I have my doubts. If you have any doubts, I refer you to the following people. I talked to them. They gave me the story. The first of them, Stanley R. Kellogg, M.D., a respected and highly competent specialist in his field. Dr. Kellogg is the physician of record in the case of Laurie Allen. I first interviewed him at his offices 3 days after Laurie was buried.
Now, what can I tell you about Laurie Allen that you don't know already?
Well, it's short and sweet, Doctor. Laurie Allen's dead. I want to know why.
Will you know why? An osteogenic sarcoma, a malignant growth in the bone.
Well, that's a clinical answer, Doctor. I'm looking for something more.
Well, there's not much more to tell. As this condition persisted, groups of malignant cells broke away from the parent growth, entered the bloodstream, and migrated to other organs of her body, particularly the lungs, where they set up secondary colonies, additional malignant growths. Once this happened, I'm afraid there wasn't much hope.
When did Laurie Allen have her first appointment with you, Doctor?
Well, it was a little over 2 years ago. She was referred to me by a mutual friend. When I first examined her, I detected a small growth. I immediately sent her to an orthopedist, a bone specialist, for further examination.
What was his opinion?
He advised a surgical biopsy. Tissue specimen was sent to 3 pathologists. They all agreed. Osteogenic sarcoma, cancer of the bone.
Then she knew what she was up against.
Yes, she did.
What kind of treatment, if any, does this condition indicate, Doctor?
Well, in this case, the probability of metastasis, or the spreading of the malignant cells throughout the body, was far too great. The only logical answer was amputation of the limb.
Then why didn't you amputate?
Because she refused to allow it. Apparently, some friend told her that radiation treatment might bring about a change, so she left me and went to a Dr. George Lee, a rentgenologist, a very good man. He called me, we discussed the matter, and even though we knew that radiation treatment was a poor second choice in this case, we had no alternative.
Did Dr. Lee treat Laurie during the year or so that she was away from you?
No, she was only with him for a few weeks. I understand there was a third doctor involved. Who he was or is, I don't know. That's something that you'll have to check on.
I will. Doctor, who knew Laurie Allen better than anyone else? I mean, if you had to tell her personal story, who would you talk to and check with?
Well, let's see. There's her mother, her fiancé, Bob Rogers, her theatrical coach. Offhand, Mr. Bailey, I'd say your best bet was her secretary. Faye Gordon's her name. I understand she knew Laurie from childhood.
I understand you knew Laurie quite well, Miss Gordon. You were her personal secretary. Two of you started together back in grammar school days, is that right?
I've known Laurie since she was 8 years old. People used to say that Laurie had all the looks and I had all the brains. Laurie had the looks and the brains. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like something to drink? Scotch or bourbon?
No, thanks. Too early for me. Sun's not down yet.
I usually don't start this early either. But these Saturday afternoons, depressing. Just get me down. I always used to wait for Saturday night. There was always something doing when Laurie was alive. No use moaning. It's gone now. It's all over. Some of Laurie's kid pictures. Just look at that. There she is in a high school musical she was in. She didn't have the lead, but she sure stole the show. Say, what kind of a story are you doing on Laurie, Mr. Bailey? I hope you're not going to make her look stupid or something.
Was she stupid?
What do you mean by that? Of course she wasn't.
Were you with Laurie when she went to Dr. Kellogg's when he first recommended amputation?
I was there.
I understand that Laurie admired Dr. Kellogg, respected his judgment. Why didn't she take his advice?
Why? Because she was 6 months from the top of the world, that's why. She had it made. A new contract. The lead in a musical. She couldn't afford to lose her leg, can't you see that?
Did you advise her one way or the other?
Nobody advised Laurie. She made her own decisions. She had a mind of her own. She's been making them ever since she was a kid. Sure there isn't something I can get you, Mr. Bailey?
No, thanks.
These lousy Saturday afternoons. Depressing. They really get me down.
You say that Laurie was a fairly bright girl, Miss Gordon. Did she really believe that radiation treatments could cure her after what Dr. Kellogg had told her?
Use your head, Mr. Bailey. It's the only thing she could believe. She made up her mind that she wouldn't lose her legs, so radiation treatments were the only answer. She kept saying that as long as she had her legs, she might beat the cancer. But once she lost it, that was that. She couldn't hope for it to come back.
Did she receive any medical treatment after she left Dr. Lee?
I have no idea. Even Bob didn't know. Bob Rogers, where she was engaged to.
Is there anyone else you can think of who might be helpful? Someone who might know if she received any further medical treatment?
You might try Dr. Lee. He might know. Also, you might call Natalie Wagner. She was Laurie's coach. Kind of a nut. She's harmless. You can reach her at the Knickerbocker Club. Any afternoon, 1 to 5.
How long was Laurie Allen with you, Miss Wagner?
How long? Right from the beginning. Right from the very beginning. Here, look for yourself. She was 17. Just 17. Ah, you should have seen how she walked. How she carried herself. Young, vibrant, beautiful, straight and proud. You should have seen the smile on her face, the sparkle in her eyes. You just couldn't miss it. You could tell right from the beginning. Laurie was chemically right.
How about competent medical treatment, Miss Wagner? Did anybody offer her that?
You mean all those medical doctors? Huh. I knew all of them. Believe me, I mean all of them. They're just plain criminals. That Dr. Lee and the Dr. Kellogg and, what was the other one's name? Dr. Lowell. Yeah, that was his name. Just plain criminals. Why, if anybody killed Laurie, they did. They put all those x-ray treatments on her. Didn't do one bit of good. But that didn't satisfy them, of course. They had to go and cut her leg off. Yeah, they were a big help, they were. But finally, I managed to get Laurie to the right kind of doctor.
Who was he, Miss Wagner? Do you remember his name?
I most certainly do. I couldn't forget it. Dr. Fredericks. The greatest man that ever lived. Believe me, the greatest.
Licensed physician, a doctor of medicine?
Of course not. What difference does it make? All you have to do is check his record. Just meet him and you'll see right away. He's one of the greatest.
I'll have to do that, Miss Wagner. By the way, those treatments that Laurie had during the past year were pretty expensive. Where'd all the money come from, do you know?
Oh, her boyfriend, the fellow she was going to marry, Bob Rogers. He took care of most of the bills. Some of her friends helped out, too. I was one of them. Oh, I'm not complaining. But I put out close to $10,000 to Dr. Fredericks and the sanitarium during that last year.
Dr. Fredericks must have worked very hard on this case.
Oh, how that man worked. He was like an angel to her. But things would have been different today if she hadn't gone back to that Dr. Lowell and then back again to that Dr. Kellogg. Believe me, a lot different.
What do you mean by that, Miss Wagner?
I mean, Laurie would be alive today. She had all the positive elements, nothing negative. She was chemically perfect. Do you know what? Laurie didn't need surgery any more than I did, but they went ahead just the same. They cut off her leg and they killed her. They killed her.
That's right. Laurie Allen came to see me only once. Her fiance, Bob Rogers, arranged the appointment for her. But she'd obviously seen this other doctor the same morning. And apparently she decided to put herself in his care.
Was that Dr. Fredericks?
That's correct.
Is Fredericks an MD?
He's listed as a doctor of nature.
Did you try to turn Laurie Allen away from Fredericks?
I did everything I possibly could to turn her against him.
Well, she must have known about your reputation. After all, Bob Rogers recommended you personally.
Mr. Bailey, there's always some people who, rather than face the facts, prefer to listen to false prophets, faith healers. Call them anything you like. Quacks, charlatans, whatever. But in my book, they're among the lowest forms of humanity. They feed on people like Laurie Allen and thousands like her. There's one thing about thieves and murderers. They're above board. At least they don't pretend to cure while they kill.
I treated her by dietary control, proper metaphysical adjustments, and by certain chemosomatic injections. I'm certain that if she had remained with me for further treatment, Laurie Allen would be alive today.
That's interesting, Dr. Fredericks. Tell me, how did Laurie impress you?
I've never met anyone like her, Mr. Bailey. I never hope to again. Glorious, absolutely sublime. At first I thought she was just another charming girl. Attractive, but that's about all. And then I began to see something deeper. She had a kind of wonderful faith and determination. Magnificent hope. Magnificent trust. I've never seen the likes of it before. Never in my entire life have I seen anyone face pain and suffering the way she did. I could see it in her face, in her body, in the way she stood, in the way she moved. That look in her eyes, in her face, in her smile. That smile, pure courage, pure faith and hope and love. Chemically, she was perfect. A fine, rare breed of woman, Mr. Bailey. Magnificent.
Well, that's what I've been told, Doctor. Tell me, when Laurie Allen first came to you, how did you diagnose her troubles? What methods did you use?
I have my own private methods, Mr. Bailey. All tried and well proven.
I understand that your diagnostic methods have been tested at least a half a dozen times by top-ranking, qualified medical specialists. And they swear that there is no foundation in fact whatsoever for any of your medical claims.
It is the most illustrious historical axiom, Mr. Bailey. Always we must fight the enemy, both from within and from without. No matter what they say, no matter what they do to me, Mr. Bailey, I shall continue to fight that enemy. I am right. I know I'm right.
Did you ever meet a boy by the name of Bob Rogers, the boy that Laurie Allen was engaged to marry?
It was very sad. The price of social conventions, I suppose. Poor girl. She had nothing for him. He had nothing for her. It was empty. Quite meaningless.
That boy couldn't understand Laurie, couldn't hope to understand her.
I don't quite follow you, Doctor. You say there was nothing between them? No romance involved?
I treated my patient for her physical ills, Mr. Bailey. If you're interested in her personal life, I suggest you see her fiancé, Mr. Rogers. For myself, I've nothing more to say. The patient is dead. I'm no longer concerned with the case.
It was a Friday night, I remember that. I was at this party down south. There isn't much I can say about it. I walked through the door, and there she was. She was standing by a window or something, I can't quite remember. She saw I was looking at her, and I kept looking at her. She kept looking at me. I guess that was about it. That's the way I first met her.
No offense intended, Bob. But tell me, were you really in love with Laurie Allen?
Of course I was in love with her. I loved her very much. What do you get, anyway?
2 or 3 things, Bob. First of all, your story doesn't jive with the facts. You say that you were engaged to Laurie Allen for 3 years or better, and yet you never married her. Strikes me you weren't too deeply concerned about her. But then again, maybe I've got the wrong impression.
You have.
Want to set me straight? How about that marriage angle?
Well, it's an old story, I guess. So old it might even sound corny. Laurie wanted to marry me all right, but not until she got into the big time. Stage, dancing, a big Broadway star. Chalk it up to ambition, I guess. She just had to have success. That was one thing she had to have.
How about Laurie's medical treatment, Bob? This Dr. Fredericks, his sanitarium. You mean to tell me you didn't know what was going on?
I didn't have any idea. I was out of town that time. You see, I work for my dad. He runs a big construction company down south. My job, I do quite a bit of traveling around the country, and, well, this was just one of those times. However, before I left town, I made an appointment with her to see Dr. Lowell. I thought that's where she was going. It wasn't until that night that I got back in town that I learned about this phony sanitarium. Right away, I went out to look for Natalie. I looked all over town, but I couldn't find her.
So you didn't find Natalie Wagner. What'd you do then?
Then I drove out to the airport, got a hold of one of the corporation planes, and I flew to the sanitarium. I got there before midnight. When I got there, Dr. Fredericks wasn't in. The guy in charge was a little upset, but I finally convinced him to take me to see Laurie.
Uh-huh.
It's pretty hard to recognize her at first. Apparently, by then, the stuff had spread all over her body, and, well, she wasn't in very good shape.
She was willing to leave the sanitarium with you?
She was so anxious to get out, she couldn't wait to sign a release. She couldn't walk, so I carried her. I remember that trip back in the airplane. There was nothing I could do for her. I could just look at her, then later hold her. She went to sleep for a little while, about 5 or 10 minutes. And then she woke up. And then all of a sudden her arms were tight around my neck. She was crying. She kept saying over and over again, "Honey, I was wrong. I was wrong. I don't want to die. Please, I don't want to die." There's nothing I could do. Just hold her. Laurie was going to die, and I knew it. And she knew it, too.
What about after you got back to town, Bob? What happened then?
I brought her to Dr. Kellogg for an examination. Another specialist, too. They said they couldn't promise anything definite, but if the amputation took place right away, she might have a chance.
Was Laurie told about that?
I I was in the room when Dr. Kellogg told her. She looked at him and smiled and said, "All right, doctor, amputate. But I promise you one thing. I'm going to live to be 95. I can't tell you what she went through, the pain and all that. I don't know. She only mentioned it once. The afternoon she died. It was on a Saturday. She was in the bedroom, through that door there. There was a nurse with her most of the time.
I'm curious. Do you mind if I have a look at that room?
I don't know. I guess it's all right.
Thanks.
There isn't much to see. It's just a bedroom. A few things of Laurie's I still keep around. Odds and ends. This is where she spent the last 12 days of her life. In this room, in this bed.
I understand you were alone with Laurie when it happened.
That's right. As a matter of fact, it was just about this time of day. The sun was just going down. She just woke up from a nap. We played a few recordings for a while, and then I read a few short stories to her. After that, we just talked. I didn't notice it then, but she seemed to be more tired than usual. She didn't seem to want to talk. She just kept looking at me, with her eyes wide. She reminded me of a little girl who had a secret and didn't want anyone to know about it. I was tuning in the radio over there. She motioned for me to come closer. I leaned over and kissed her and asked her what she wanted. The voice was almost a whisper. She said, "Honey, I almost played a dirty trick on you. I was going to ask you to go to the kitchen and get me a glass of water. And while you were gone, I was going to die. I started to kid her about it. She smiled again and said, "Honey, I'm sorry. Can't help it. I'm going to die this afternoon." Then she asked me to kiss her. I told her I wouldn't. I stopped talking like that. Then I came over to this side of the room and drew back the curtains to let some light in. The sun was just about down. And then I heard a call. "Honey?" That was all. I didn't have to look at her to know she was dead. Well, that's just about it. The last 12 days, the life of Laurie Allen.
Oh, thanks, Bob. I think I've got my story.